Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, finally. The end of the week is here upon us. We hope everyone had a good week. Let's get right into some space weather news. Right now our solar wind speeds are moderate, to say the least, 410.6 kilometers per second with a density of 4.7. Looking at our sun, like I reported this morning, and we are looking at 0 sunspots. This is now day number 4 in a row and puts us at 57 days total without sunspots. Now we can go over here to spaceweather.com, I'm sorry, thegrandsolarminimum.com in our space weather section. Check out the rest of our space weather stats for tonight. Solar X-ray flux. Boy, is that a different scene than what we were looking at last week. It was all over the place. But that sunspot AR 2736 has exited. No more C-class flares, and all has been quiet. Nothing more than a KP of 3 as well in the last 48 hours. Like I said, no sunspots to report at this time. And taking a look at the SDO in motion, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit here, guys. This is the coronal hole that we are looking at. We are expecting some increased solar wind speeds to happen somewhere around March 30th or March 31st. And as we look at our star to see if we have anything else cooking up in the back, well, right now the star looks quiet. Coronal hole possibility on the horizon on the eastern limb just in a few days. Pretty decent sized one if you ask me. But other than that, no immediate threats of sunspots or any kind of solar activity to be concerned with at the time. Taking a look at our TSI reading for March 20th, 2019, 1360.6911. Alright, let's get right into it. Kind of around the world update here, and this is not a lot that I'm going to go over, but it is a lot at the same time. Squaw Valley snowfall on record pace right now, according to Tony Heller. And it says here it has received now 658 inches of snow this winter, and for the date is 4 inches ahead of its previous record in the year 2017. Taking a look at some charts here, we see the increase snowfall from 2017 to snowfall here in 2019. And again, only 4 inches away from the record of 2017. This comes 3 years after experts announced the permanent drought in California. California braces for unending drought, and the date was May 9th, 2016. Look at that. This is why I like Tony. Straight to the point. Not flashy. Puts out the information without being cocky. Thanks El Nino, but California's drought is probably forever. That's a beautiful one, and there's links back to this. Let's take a look and see what that. Gosh. So thanks El Nino, but California's drought is probably forever. What's funny about this is that 2015 into 16, that El Nino was a bit. It was a bit more impressive than the one that we are experiencing right now, which is what we would call a Modaki. Drought is a tricky thing to define. It's not just a matter of how little water falls out of the sky. If it were you, would be forgiven for believing that California's wettest winter had ended or even alleviated, the worst drought in state history. But no, despite the snow in the Sierra Nevada, the water filling Lake Shasta and the rapids, and the Kern River, California is still in the state of a drought for now, maybe forever. On the 9th of May, Jerry Brown issued an executive order in 2016 that makes permanent certain emergency water cuts from the past few years. Now we know that the drought is becoming a regular occurrence, and water conservation must be part of our everyday life. Okay, so, this article is going to go over some things that happened back then. Bravo to Brown for actually taking the proper action in, conserving water consumption. We were in a drought. Okay, it was pretty bad. But it's fun to read the old headlines, from back in the day. Change to snow saves California Olympic site. Old article here. Tony is very good. This is February 1960. Just he throws a little bit of everything out here, guys. The proof is in the pudding. But here we are, 3 years later, and we are past the fear-mongering. And that guy looks angry, don't he? But we're past the fear-mongering and the lies. Here's another lie. So we had Al Gore tell us that no snow after 2013. Our children wouldn't see it. They probably wouldn't know what it is, especially in North America. Then we had the lie about the polar ice caps melting. Now listen, guys. Summer, they retreat. Winter, they come back. It's all about how strong they come back. And yes, 2016 and before that, we had some weak numbers from our ice growth. In fact, 2018 was pretty puny. But it compared to years past. But we started to see a rise late, a rapid freeze, actually, in my opinion, and it's carrying over into 2019. Is it record levels? No, absolutely not. But we covered it here not too long ago that Greenland's ice sheets are now growing once again and faster than once thought. But again, it's just interesting that we see time goes by and here we unveil more lies. Now, I'd like to say this channel here is pacing themselves. We know we've got another solar cycle in front of us before we get to the real nitty-gritty of the grand solar minimum. And I'm not saying that we're not going to see weather and climate conditions like we're going to see in the grand solar minimum. We're in a solar minimum right now. And it's going to be, you know, a little bit longer before we start to come out of this into a week maximum. I honestly believe as low as the last minimum has been, cycle 24 as well, that we're seeing the possibilities of what we're going to see in a grand solar minimum. But when we do finally get to that grand part of the minimum, it's going to be more frequent. It's going to be more intense. It's not this right here, believe it or not. I hate saying this, guys, and it's so cliche, but it's such the tip of the iceberg. These aren't happening on a regular event. This is nothing yet. We haven't seen the worst. Let's give you an update real quick on Iran. News agency reports flash flood death toll up to 44. In Tehran, their semi-official Tasnim news agency is reporting that the death toll of flash floods across the country has risen to 44 from 17 from what we reported as well. The Thursday report quotes an official in the country's emergency medical services agency saying that 44 people have died since Monday in 10 provinces. Since March 19th, many roads in Iran have been affected by heavy rainfall that caused flash flooding. Last year, 30 people were killed in flash flooding in the eastern part of a neighboring province out there. So just a quick update. And guys, March 19th, today is the 29th. Some of us, it's the 30th of March. But my point is, we're over 10 days now of flooding conditions. And that's, you know, same with Mozambique. And an update here. Guys, this is how bad the situation's getting. The lives and livelihoods of farmers and fishers in 3 southern African countries hit by tropical cyclone Idai are under severe threat, with communities in Mozambique bearing a particularly heavy burden. For a country where 80% of the population depends on agriculture, keeping animals alive, rehabilitating damaged land, and rebooting food production will be critical as the waters recede. Now, still waiting for the waters to recede, by the way. Significant swaths of cropland were flooded on the eve of April, May maize and sorghum harvests. Most losses are expected in Mozambique's Manica and Sofala provinces, which usually contribute about 25% of the national cereal output. It says here, before the storm hit, around half of Mozambique's rural families had some maize, cassava, and bean reserves, but the flooding will have been, it says, ruined much of these, both food and seed purposes. So, in other words, we are experiencing the same thing in Mozambique that we are experiencing in Iowa, in Nebraska, in South Dakota, and more to come. And that is this grain that is being exposed to floodwaters. Look, guys, A silo, once it's underwater, the entire thing is contaminated. All right. More I read about this, you cannot recover any grain from a silo that has water at any point. Even if the top 50% is dry, it's still contaminated. It is no longer for human consumption and possibly not even good enough for animal feed. So, another part of the world getting monster flooding, experiencing the same kind of disasters, but the worst part about this is that these are areas that are not developed like they are here in the United States. All right, let's just put that out there. So these people are getting hit twice as hard. Now, I'm not saying that our farmers here in the United States aren't feeling it, because I know right now the feeling across the country for farmers all over is scary. It's a heavy heart. It's stress, anxiety. And, you know, you can talk about whatever you want, what's causing it. I think this channel and a few others out there have tried to warn you, Ice Age Farmer, about the food insecurities during these grand solar minimums. And we are approaching one, so conditions will continue to deteriorate. Weaker magnetosphere, allowing more cosmic radiation into our atmosphere. That so far, studies have proven that cosmic radiation, cosmic rays, do seed our clouds and create cloud nucleation. And cosmic rays are highly charged particles. And when you're talking about highly charged particles teaming up with water vapor and other particulates already in the atmosphere, supercharged particles, guys, abundance, more than usual. There's a reason why they say this is a 124-year-old flood event. We haven't seen this kind of action in over 150 years. Think about it. When you hear someone say it's been 150 years, 160 years, 180 years since they've seen that kind of precipitation, it lines up with the cycle of a grand minimum. And everybody, before you start, I know 206 years or so is the cycle. What I'm trying to say is that, yes, things do have an abrupt climate change effect to it at some point during these deep grand solar minimums. But to understand how we cool as a planet, and when it comes to solar activity, it's a decadal thing. So each cycle, we continue to see numbers and conditions worsen. That's why I believe this upcoming cycle is just part of the puzzle that's keeping us going towards a grand solar minimum. But with all these floodings that we're seeing across the world, guys, this isn't you can talk about water vapor all day long and warming temperatures over the past several years. Some will say we haven't seen any warming at all. Some will say that it's not been enough. Some are saying we're in a warming pause. Now, either way you look at it, without particles in your atmosphere, you don't have raindrops, snowflakes, all right? And we're not putting enough particulates in the atmosphere to create that effect either. We're 0.04% part of the problem. CO2 emissions from man is 0.004%, I believe, part of the problem. Not even 0.5%, guys. That's how much we impact the climate. The rest is all Mother Nature. And you see it all the time. Whether people say it all, Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do. Right now, she's in a cycle. And we all know about cycles. They happen continuously, usually uninterrupted. And right on schedule, are we in for another cycle that's going to be the experience that so many of us are talking about with climate change. You know, I had somebody ask me today if I didn't believe that we were going through climate change. And I told him, I said, I do believe we're experiencing climate change. But it's natural. It's a cycle that happens. I also said that that doesn't mean I am minimizing the events that are happening around us and that we need to do something to help better prepare ourselves. But there's nothing that lawmakers or man can do to stop this. The best we can do right now is adapt and prepare for ourselves. Maybe the hope down the road is everybody pulls together and we can form big communities and work together in the future. I hope that's what happens. There's a lot of people out there whose agendas are very unclear, and it's concerning because some of these people out there are actually promoting the preparedness of a grand solar minimum and its conditions, but some of these people spew out hate and anti-religion and anti-everything. It's almost sounding like a dangerous militia, not a preparation thing anymore. So we have to be sensible about this, guys. We have to get real about this. It's not just here in the United States. It's worldwide. The floods, the days of crops, fields being underwater, cities being destroyed, infrastructures being destroyed, and it's happening every single week, if not almost every other day now, that we hear about another area getting a 100 or 150-year-old flood. And it's just so funny to me that the correlation is there when you talk about the science of what makes raindrops and snowflakes, particulates, vapor, and now that we know, thanks to people like the Cloud Project and Heinrich Finsmark, Dr. Jasper Kirksby as well, who are proving that our atmosphere is being seeded and more cloud nucleation is happening. Also dropping more precipitation. Also, let's not forget, low solar wind makes the jet stream. Also, so far, there is a correlation. Oh yes, during minimums, especially deep minimums, the jet stream, when we experience low solar wind, will be a lot more up and down, so to speak, versus when we're in a maximum, the jet streams are a little tighter. There's not so much troughing going on. It's a tight jet stream. But the weaker the magnetosphere and the lower the solar wind, the more out of control and out of whack the jet stream seems to be. And I'm telling you, I've seen some weird looking jet streams this year, especially in 2019. And folks, I'm here to say right now, 2019 into 2020, here it comes. This was the winter coming up, 2019 to 2020, and even 2020 into 2021. Those are the winters that a lot of people have been warning us about that are upcoming. So think about it this way. We smashed the snow mass record this year in the northern hemisphere. And if conditions continue to get worse, then what's going to happen next spring? And the following spring after that, when we beat the year before that snow mass? I hope we don't.